You're riding with me, let's go. Yeah, jump in there. I'm gonna grab me a water to take with me. You guys want a water?
Dude, you could win an award for this one. We're gonna break the internet. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Multiple pieces after that. We'll go around this way here and take you inside. That's my parents' house up on the hill. That's where they live. And
how do you go from California if your dad has a farm in Mooresburg, Tennessee? How's that a thing?
When I was in 3rd grade, my dad was trying to pursue becoming an airline pilot, and so he was trying to get all the hours he could. And he ended up getting a job working out of Tri-City Airport, flying for a coal miner. And we moved, and I lived right near where Bristol Racetrack's at, in Blumpville, for 1 year. And this is Cherokee Lake out here. Caught the largest bass that I've ever even heard of anyone catching out of this lake.
How big?
9.2, right there. And then the next day I caught a 8.9. Same lure, within 10 foot of each other. I never caught anything over 7 pounds before that or after that.
Did you keep it or did you toss it back?
Took them up, put them in my ponds.
All right. You kept them.
I take everything that's any size up to the ponds.
So they end up with this property.
It's got over 400 miles of shoreline to this lake here.
Oh wow!
So it's a big lake. You can go all the way to the dam in Jefferson City and have a pretty good day. That's my boat out there. That's my cruiser.
I've been told maybe as much as racing, you love airplanes and fishing. Is that true?
I love fishing, and I absolutely airplanes, especially what my dad does. You know, his hobby is building World War I airplanes, and I don't know if you guys saw this. There's a mountaintop over there. When you were coming up, you probably saw where it was all torn up. That you could see kind of the white on it when you were driving up. Okay, that's a white silica sand mine. I bought a lot of that sand, and it's not hard on your feet.
So you made you a beach out there.
There's a lot of people have seen this barn in a lot of photo shoots that we've done. And it's like, this is the barn that's on the Bloomquist Speed Shop shirt we have. My dad used to raise Black Angus and have his own cattle, but now a neighbor puts cows on our property. Dwayne Hommel's dad built this dam for me to help Dwayne back in the day. I don't know if you surely remember Dwayne.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you know, he was really coming on hard.
Oh, he was going to be. How big do you think Dwayne was going to be?
I think that it was going to be up to Dwayne. You know, I think that I think he had everything it took to be as big as he could fathom in his head. Everybody knows I like to drink a little bit, and you can get out. And this is what at COVID time I built this swing. I didn't have that much to do, so I went to the scrapyard, got this steel and all this stuff, and then I built this swing, which right now, when we built the dam here, we've got a big Army surplus pump here that we can pump this thing full pretty much any time. That you can see right down there on the bank. See the lines coming out that big. It's got a 6-cylinder engine on it, and it'll pump 3,000 gallons a minute. I'm getting ready to do a golf cart path around this side of it and put lights down the dam and down this side of it, and it's full of fish. It's just really got great fishing in it. So does the lake. And then we've got another pond that's over the top of that hill over there that I stocked in. That's where I put those big fish at. But anyway, so I'll back up here. So now you can see there's a fence row right there that goes up. Okay, so that's a different piece. And then you can see the tree line over there. That is the last piece that we got. And that one, you know, cost obviously a lot more because somebody wanted to build houses on it. And the lake goes around the corner and all the way up the other side of that property. So now there's no one will ever be able to build here.
How many acres have you got?
140.
Wow.
The first thing my dad did when we moved here was build the runway, because obviously he wanted a place. He wasn't going to have anywhere that didn't have a runway. And back to when we lived here, when I was in the 3rd grade for a year. I just remember I really liked the feel of the area. I like the country. I like the hills. I like and I like to fish. And where we lived up there, I got to do a little bit of fishing when I was younger. And even though it was a little bit tough coming from California here and talking like a Californian and getting your ass whipped because you talk funny all the time by all the local boys, you know, you
had long hair back then too, though, right?
Not so much when I was younger. My dad was kind of Hitler back then. He told me he wasn't never going to have a long-haired kid, and I proved him different.
Do you think that's one reason that you went with the long hair?
More than likely.
Really? Little rebellion. Maybe. I can't imagine you being a rebel about anything, Scott.
Yeah, never. I can do whatever I want.
Is this your sanctuary?
This is pretty much it, you know. And when this is full and the water goes way back up, and there's just about 1.5 foot of that island showing, and then the other island also, it's beautiful, really. Right now it's not as beautiful as it could be. We started working on the apartment that I'll show you, that I lived in for 13 years, and I painted those blocks. And but my dad, this airplane that he's actually got in view over here is the largest home-built World War I airplane, or the largest home-built plane period that anyone's ever even attempted to build. And it's a twin-engine Gotha bomber, and there's not been one in the air for over 100 years. And he had a lot done, and he got sidetracked, and he went gasser racing, and that's where you see that Henry J there. Yeah. And I'll show you some of the other hot rods he's got in the back room. But he actually won his first meet with that Henry J. The 2 hot dogs red lighted, and you know, he'd already got so far though. But then they red lighted, and he ended up winning the meet.
How fast would that car go?
I don't know. We'll ask him. He's here. That's a good thing. We don't always get to. You'll get to get a little bit.
Is that him working in there right now?
Yeah, he's the only one. He works. He's a lone ranger. He actually does more with less equipment than any person on the planet, I think.
Is that where your fire was born? Watching what he could do.
There was nothing he wouldn't tackle, just like what you're watching right now. There's not a human on the planet that would tackle this project, and there's not any plans for that plane anywhere, and that's what took him a long time before he would start on it. Because I'll show you some other airplanes, you know, like a Fokker triplane, like the Red Baron flew, yeah. and he's got a Sopwith Pup, which was the first plane that ever shot a Gotha out of the sky. And then he's got some other World War I stuff, and then I've got a Piper Cub of my own, and me and him are half on a Citabria Champ. He thought I was going to be a pilot and sent me to flying school when I was young, and it sent me to the crash course of nobody fails school. You know, all they do is cram the answers, and I failed. But I knew flying as far as for a job was not for me, because when I fly my plane, I'm 5 foot off the water, and I'm by here, and I'm having, well, I don't know if there's rules or not. I never asked.
I would say there's probably a rule.
But when you take off, you can come back to your own place, and they don't really. I've never been pulled over yet. Put it that way.
You couldn't respect this guy any possible more than you already do. Like, you just have an amazing amount of respect. That's an interesting conflict.
Yeah, we had our moments though. I mean, we had 2 major moments in life that I came back at him with probably more than I should have. Just a lot of resentment, a lot of, you know, he was very hard ruling, and it was his way or no way always, and I finally just got fed up with it, and we were about to butt heads, really butt heads. But that's one thing he taught me. It was there's no such thing as a fair fight. If you're gonna come at your old man, you better be ready for more than you. You know, he's ready for more than you are,
right?
Because he's older than you are.
He's got experience.
And whatever he might present you with, you probably ain't ready for. Whether it's a hatchet hammer or a gun or whatever it is, you're not gonna win. That is, Dad. What year is your Henry J here? 51?
51, wow.
51, okay.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah. And you can see this was a gunner station up here,
Oh, wow.
and that's what that circle is. And the guy could do a full, pretty good circle around. And then in the back here, this guy, he shot from behind.
Wow.
And they just hauled how many 1,000 pounds of bombs?
Well, they put on 4,000 pounds.
Bombs.
Oh,
And they went out about 9,000 pounds and they could barely climb.
wow.
This one here is going to weigh half what it did and have another 200 horsepower, so it should lift off in about 150 feet.
Quicker than the small planes that I'm going to show you.
I can't wait to see video of that. That'll be amazing.
Yeah, we're going to get a bunch of, we're going to get a couple of people with drones.
Open that up and you can see some other real shots of out in the combat and whatever. You get an idea what it was like. These guys flew at night. They crossed from Belgium into England and got to London without any navigational aid whatsoever. London was on blackout. The field they took off of, they just had a couple of smudge spots. They would go over there, drop all their bombs, and then come in after the bombs were gone, dump out bucket loads of flechettes, which are little darts with razor blades on them, and that would kill people and maim people also.
So this is like what year roughly, you think?
1916, 17. And they would then fly back and try to find that place they took off from.
So you can see these fields here where they take off. The difference is that they have these big, wide, flat fields, and he's got this grass runway right here that's not got a lot of room.
Right.
The only parts that were aero, style were above the interior. So, and that way, if we ran the topless and everything, it just looked really damn good.
Right.
And so I guess a lot of people started calling Richards and around and wanted the aero tubing chassis. and I guess they looked around, or I just heard. I can't say this to be absolute, but I'd heard that they'd researched it and they just couldn't find it, because guess what? You cannot bend aero tubing like that roll gauge is, and so they couldn't give people what they were asking, and they just got tired of people wanting it, and finally it just raised hell enough that Richie Lewis called me up and told me I couldn't race that car anymore.
But then you got to race it again, is that correct?
Absolute. And that's when the World of Outlaws deal with Boundless happened, with the sprint car deal, and they weren't going to do a late model deal without me. And Mark started calling me, trying to convince me I needed to do it. And that's when I thought of come up with the Dirty Dozen deal and all that. But anyway, I told him that if I could race this car again, that I'd consider it. Well, I actually ended up writing the whole rule book for the Boundless bunch, for the first World of Outlaw late model racing. For that whole season, I wrote the rule book. And that took me a lot of time. That's you're talking winter time. I got better things to do, and I measured around those tubes and made sure that was in the book.
You took care of yourself.
He said it was all right. He said he wasn't going to worry about it. And the funny thing about it is when they decided I couldn't run that car, it was right when the first Bristol race was coming.
Yeah.
And they thought that it would definitely be an advantage. And that's when Richie showed up and told me I could not run it in Bristol.
And it would have been an advantage.
It might have. There's no way to prove or disprove it. And I know this, that when he said I could not run it, I did have another car, but now I didn't have a spare or backup car. And we won 2 out of 3 that year and broke a rear end in the other one. So whether that would have made a difference or not, it's irrelevant, because we might have won all 3 if we hadn't lost a rear end in the other one. So, man, there's so many things. Like I always say, and it's like the Bible. It's like anything. It's like, can you prove it, but can you disprove it? Well, I can't prove that that's faster, and no one can disprove it. I'd like to think that it might but it might just be thousandths, if that. I've been out qualified by 1,000th of a second. So, again, this sport it's about finding hundredths in 10 places.